Hi everyone. Hello. Hi, thank you for joining us this Thursday evening. My name's Leslie, and you might know me as the Rice Cooker Man on Facebook and Instagram. And I'm also a financial consultant with Prudential for the last 11 years. And today, I'm very honored to be invited by Workwell to be the host for today's webinar. So Workwell is your specialized workplace wellness strategy consultant. They are a team that focus on helping you keep you guys, the employees, happy and healthy. So on behalf of the team at Workwell and myself, a huge thank you to everyone who has joined us this Thursday evening. And we are really excited to bring you tons of value. So let me quickly introduce our panelists for today. So first up is one of my good friends, Rebecca Ong. She's a mother of two lovely boys, a master financial consultant with Prudential for the last 12 years. Hi, Rebecca. And the next panelist is the reason why all of us are here this evening. We are very honored to have with us today Jamie Ong, Psychologist and Supervisor with the Singapore Psychological Society, to share with us her insights in helping kids, transiting back to school during this COVID-19 pandemic. So hi, Jamie.
Hello, hi.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me here tonight.
Yeah. So before we begin, let me just give you a highlight of the event format so you know what to expect. Shortly later, I'll be passing the stage to Jamie. Prior to this webinar, we have received a lot of questions for you guys. So we actually have consolidated the top 3 questions. And the first 20 minutes, Jamie will be covering 2 parts. First part will be understanding your child's back to school experience and then making it a positive experience. After which, Rebecca and myself will come back on stage to go through to do the Q&A session. And this is also where we help you to surface any questions that you might have that's not covered during Jamie's sharing. Mm-hmm. And if you wish to chime in at any point of time, there is 2 parts you can do. If you're on mobile screen on the top somewhere around here, there's this like Q&A button or the chat button, right? You can key in your questions. So once after Jamie is done with her sharing, then we definitely can, refer to the questions and we'll definitely ask her. We'll try and cover as much questions as possible. But however, we do apologize in advance that we will not be covering any personal consultation type of questions as we wish to respect everyone's time here today. All right. Last housekeeping rules, you can go to the view session. I think it's also somewhere on the top extreme right corner to change it to gallery mode to have to make the best viewing experience. All right. With that all aside, Rebecca and myself will go on mute and we will have Jamie to take the stage. Jamie, please take it away.
Okay, now let me share my slides. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight on your Thursday evening. Okay, I understand most of you have families, right? So let's hopefully today you can learn some things, and some of the things that we talk about tonight will be helpful for you to manage your child. So this year, 2022, and the kids all go back to school after 2 years of COVID. And hopefully this year we can have at least a bit of normalcy, mostly face-to-face. Hopefully home-based learning is not a sudden occurrence anymore. But yeah, so now tonight we'll talk about how we can help our kids cope with the stress or anxiety that they might be facing when they return to school. Okay. So, my request tonight is I'm hoping to make this webinar as experiential and as interactive as I can, but I understand, I can't see you guys, right? But, if you want, please feel free to share on the chat. I'll have it open somewhere on my screen so I can answer any questions or comments along the way or after the entire webinar. Okay, so we also want to maintain confidentiality and respect each other's opinions. I want you to bring your whole self, thoughts, emotions, and whatever you can into this webinar. Later, we'll try a short exercise to kind of like help everyone relax and enjoy the session. And I want you to be open to your experience here. Okay. So we have 2 parts tonight, like what Leslie has mentioned. The first part is the what and why. So understanding what your child might actually feel or what might be going through their head when they go back to school, right? And then the second part is when we want to get a bit more practical And I want to answer your how questions. So how can we make it a positive experience for them when they go back to school? How can we address some of the specific issues that might come about, okay, during this transition period, like transition from like 1 year to another, new year, as well as from holiday back to school mode in that sense. Okay, so the first part, so let's go right in and let's try and understand what is my child's experience when they go back to school. So the first question I want you to kind of like ask yourself is, what are your expectations for your child when they go back, right? What are you expecting your child to do in school, or what are you expecting are the type of behaviors that they might present with when they go back to school, right? So why I'm asking you to kind of like think about this is because all of us have expectations of ourselves when our child go back to school, right? Like whether it's conscious or unconscious. A lot of time it's unconscious because we don't like sit down and we say, okay, I expect him to this, right? But personally, unconsciously, I expect my child when he goes back to school to be able to get up in the morning without trouble, to love and enjoy school and know that school is always fun. Right? And that he will go to school and he'll come back and he'll tell me all about his day. And when teacher gives him homework, he will finish all, and I hope to not hear any phone calls or messages or receive any messages from the teacher saying that, he didn't do his homework or he misbehaved, or there were issues in school. So these are all expectations, but they might not be conscious. Like I don't consciously write this down, but unconsciously, these might be some expectations that I might have, right? Why I want you to start thinking about your expectations? Because sometimes when an issue comes about, especially a misbehavior or a behavior that we don't really expect or desire, okay? So like for example here, if a child refuses to do homework, we might expect or we might think that, must be lazy. Why is he being oppositional? I don't think he likes school. He doesn't care about school. Or, why is he such an irresponsible child, for example? So these are things that we might expect in that sense. However, we didn't see the entire story. So it could be that because, in this example, the older brother excels in school, so he feels the pressure to do it as well. He might be so-called shamed by the teacher for mistakes. So maybe not shamed, but so sometimes the teacher calls people out like, hey, why you didn't do your homework, in front of the entire class. So he's starting to, refuse participation. The amount of homework can be overwhelming. So this part in our brain called the amygdala, which controls a lot of our emotions, especially fear, is triggered by new assignments and causes kind of like a reactive or a shutdown mode. Okay, or sometimes they're just very hungry or tired and they just didn't have enough break and they want more movement, so they need more physical activity and therefore they are unable to concentrate, right? So these reasons are kind of like things that we might not expect and we might not actually think about at the beginning when we see our child perhaps throwing a tantrum. Okay, so in this example here, you see that there's some reference to something called a downstairs brain. Don't worry, I will tell you what a downstairs brain means later, and then we can talk more about it. Okay, so keeping this example in mind, start thinking back about what your expectations for your child is, and start thinking if they're actually realistic. Yeah, and what can then we do to kind of like set realistic expectations. So first, as parents, we have to really identify our child's strengths and weaknesses. We know our child best, right? So if we really sit down or we observe them or we think about the things that they have done, we'll realize that they do have strengths and weaknesses. Okay, and when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, we're not comparing our child's ability to another child. Okay, so when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, it's about your own child's ability within themselves. Okay, so for example, if I have the abilities of dancing, singing, doing math, and driving or cooking, things like that. And among these 5 things, which do I do best? That is my strength. And which do I do the worst? then perhaps that's my weakness, right? So perhaps my strength could be, doing math. Yeah, and then my weakness could be dancing. Yeah, I can't dance. I like have 2 left foot. So yeah, yes. So yeah, so that's how you want to go about to try and identify your child's strengths and weakness. Why this is important? Because then it can lead us to the next step, which is to think about, based on my child's weaknesses, what might be some areas that he or she might struggle at school. And then based on that, be specific and adjust your expectations accordingly, right? At the same time, you can be preemptive and think about the specific steps to work with your child on their difficulties. And when you think about the specific steps, the important thing that come about here would be your child's strengths. So tap on your child's strengths to help their weakness. Yeah, so the first step is to think about, this child's strengths and weaknesses, then think about how their weakness might affect how the things that they might struggle in school. And then think about their strengths and how can you use their strengths to work on their weaknesses. Yeah. And finally, the last one is think about steps to support you as a parent when you are trying to support your child to deal with this new set of expectations, right? How am I going to support myself so that I can support my child? If I'm the kind that gets anxious easily as well, then perhaps I need to be more aware, or I might need to be explicit in terms of calming myself down before going to talk to my child about this particular topic, for example. Okay, so you might want to think this through, and then first of all, set realistic expectations. Okay, so when we have realistic expectations, next we can then try to kind of like understand how my child is feeling, how their feelings, how their thoughts, and how their behaviors all link together. Okay, so I call this the magic triangle. when I teach the children, or when I talk to the kids that I see in the clinic, I teach them this and I say that this is a magic triangle. And they get all very excited. Then I say, yeah, it's a magic triangle because you see, your emotions is linked to your thought, and it's also linked to your actions or your behaviors. But I also make it a point to tell them that your emotions and your action or your behaviors are separate. So as parents, we also need to learn that, because we need to know that it's not wrong to get angry, and it's not wrong to be anxious. Emotions are emotions. We can't really control when the emotions come about, right? What we can control is the actions. When we are angry, we have a tendency to hit someone, for example. So it's not wrong to feel angry, but it's wrong to hit someone. So it has to be very clear and specific with the child, so they don't feel like they're being attacked, or they don't feel like their emotions are being invalidated in that sense. So talking about the entire triangle, why I call it the magic triangle, because they are all linked. And to change an emotion, you can do it by changing your behaviors, or you can do it by changing how you think. Yeah, so then this will give us some clue about the type of strategies that we can do to help our child manage their emotions. Okay, so this is an example of how we can use the magic triangle to understand anxiety, right? So what happened? So this is a situation that there is a new teacher today, right? And because it's a new teacher, how does it affect my thoughts? So my thoughts would be, oh, what if she's very fierce? Oh, she looks very scary. Yeah. So these thoughts are what we call unhelpful thoughts. Unhelpful because they make you more worried, or they make you more upset. Okay. Helpful thoughts are thoughts that makes you feel better and that you can cope, right? So those are helpful thoughts. So it's very straightforward, helpful versus unhelpful. So these are unhelpful thoughts. And because of these unhelpful thoughts, I start to feel worried, I start to feel anxious, I start to feel scared. Then for the younger kids, what I like to do is get them to rate for me, how worried do you feel from 0 to 10? To let them understand that there is intensity, there is that, level of worry. It's not always 100% worry and then not worry at all. There is those in betweens, right? So that they can also start identifying their own emotions and be a bit more sensitive to it. So then in this case, this example, the child might circle 7. So I know, well, okay, this is quite high in the middle range, kind of thing. Yeah. So understanding anxiety, we need to know that how I feel depends on how I think, right? And helpful versus unhelpful thoughts, and how I feel versus what I do, which is what I told you just now about how emotions and behaviors are separate, but how I feel also is affected by how I think. Okay, so these can be applied to us as well, as adults, as parents, right? So that we can also better understand how our thoughts affect our emotions, affect our behaviors, and we can also translate this to our children. Okay, so we understand anxiety in this format, in the magic triangle format. Okay, so that's one way to look at anxiety. The next one, I want to look at the child's brain. Okay, so yeah. So this is from a book by Daniel Siegel, is The Whole Brain Child. So basically he says that our brain, there's 2 types. So we can divide it into upstairs and downstairs. Okay, so the upstairs brain is here and then the downstairs brain. So the parts of the brain, if you know neurobiology or neuroscience, the downstairs part of the brain, it's formed by this part called amygdala, and a lot of other parts of the brain that is related with emotions. Okay. However, the top of our brain, the upstairs brain, is related with what we call the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex, which is at the front of our head, and a lot of high functioning, complex function type parts of the brain, where they make decisions, they plan things, they are able to regulate the emotions, the downstairs part, a lot of empathy, morality, imagination, things like that. But the downstairs part of the brain, because it's very relates very, very close to emotions, is a bit more primitive. So it has things like, when we decide to fight or flight, that response, or when, our basic autonomic functions like blinking, and stuff like that is controlled by the bottom part. A lot of sensory type of memories, very strong emotions are definitely comes up from the downstairs part of our brain. Okay, so the downstairs part always act before they think, in a way. So you can now then link back to just now example when they say things about enraging the downstairs brain. So sometimes as parents, we like to say, we like to what I call demand and command. And when we do that, we kind of like enrage the downstairs brain, because we're kind of like preventing the emotions from coming up. Or when we get angry ourselves, the kids might be afraid, right? So when they're afraid, they might respond by the fight or flight response. Yeah, so you're kind of like triggering the downstairs brain. So sometimes this might not, like command and demand might not be the best approach. But I do have to say sometimes it is the best, especially if, it's something to do with safety. Then of course you just need to hurry up, get your child out of there, okay? So then, based on our understanding of the upstairs and downstairs, then we can think about how then our child's tantrum look like. Okay, so what does an upstairs tantrum looks like, and what does a downstairs tantrum looks like? So downstairs a bit more straightforward, right? It's like basically you just lose control of the body, of your emotions. They might start getting very aggressive. They might start throwing things. They might get violent. They can't make choices. They're not listening to whatever you're saying. So this is the downstairs brain tantrum. The upstairs tantrum is a conscious choice to act out and push button. So a bit different. So you get the silent rebelling, or the I don't want, the purposely 唱反调, like what some Chinese people say. So they purposely do the opposite. Okay, so it's not like the huge emotion kind of tantrums, but they maybe have some strategy to negotiate with you to get what they want. They want to try and control the situation. They can still be reasoned with sometimes if you talk to them, and you can actually obviously see them trying to control their emotions. In some cases you can see them trying to control their emotions, and they can stop when you kind of like resolve the situation or when you meet their demands. So those are the upstairs tantrum. So there's this note here that say that children that are very young, so your toddler or lower primary, they might not have this type of tantrums as often, right? Or the very young ones, they might not be, you won't see them having this type of tantrums because that part of the brain might not be developed as yet, in a sense. Okay, so our brain develops from the back. So if you look at my hand, it's like the brain stem, which is your neck from here, and then you develop to the front. This is your forehead. So it develops from the bottom and the back to the front. So like I mentioned just now, the prefrontal cortex is when we think and we plan and we control our behaviors, right? So that is the last to develop. And usually that only fully develop when we are in our mid-20s. So yeah, so it takes time. That's why we need to try to help our child engage the upstairs brain. Okay, so that we can also help them understand their own anxiety and problem solve appropriately. Okay, so after this, I'm moving on to the next section. So if you have questions, just type in the chat, okay? Or if you feel like I'm going too fast, just type in the chat. So now we'll move on to the how. So we know that, okay, we need to set realistic expectations, right? And we know that, okay, our feelings, our thoughts, and our behaviors all link together and they might affect each other. And then we also know that as a child, they might have upstairs brain and downstairs brain, and usually they use and activate most of their downstairs brain. So we need to help them activate the upstairs brain. So these are the three things we know. Now it's how can we then help them with all this based on what we know. So the first strategy that we can do is move it or lose it. So basically, instead of command and demand, like I said just now, like in this comics, the child is, you know, don't want to get dressed and don't want to go to bed, right? And then the mom is like, no, you get dressed or else you get time out, right? Instead of that, try move it or lose it, right? So telling the child, change your body posture. Let's move around. Okay, let's play a dressing game, do a jumping jack, then we put our pants on, something like that. So that will actually help to manage the child's downstairs brain. You're like kind of like calming them down and changing the emotions a bit. This is also based on like, you know how sometimes, I don't know if you all have heard that people have said like, you know, if you feel upset, you naturally tend to frown or your facial expression will also be downcast. You know, if you try to perhaps smile a bit or have that half smile, you'll feel a bit better. Or even our body posture, like how some, you know, motivational workshops or positive side workshops, you know, they tell you that to be confident, change your posture, right? Stand up, right? Look up and things like that. Then you might feel better. This is the same. So when a child is angry and anxious, their muscles tense up also. So you want them to move around and you want them to change the posture so that you can try and change the emotions and the behavior. Then you can kind of like engage the upstairs brain, which we'll move on later. Here is more of like just calming the downstairs brain first. We want to calm them down, right? So as parents, we also have our own move it or lose it. So first of all, you know, we want to do no harm. So every time we feel like we might say something that we regret or we might do something we regret, close your mouth, put your hands behind your back, you know, especially if you feel like, oh, you know, you just want to, yeah. So then you put your hands behind your back. Sometimes if it's really, really hard, you might want to remove yourself from the situation and calm down first. So regain some control. And by doing so, actually, sometimes we are showing our child that we can calm down. And this is what you can do to calm yourself down as well. Then slowly your child might actually model after you and pick it up. And of course, finally, once you've calmed down, you feel like you're ready to take on the situation, then go back and repair the relationship with your child in that sense where, you know, quickly go back, reconnect, and try to engage the child. So to calm them down first, then engage. Whenever the child is emotional, always deal with the emotions first. Do not engage and reason yet. Okay, so that's why move it and lose it is one of the first strategies in that sense. Okay, so some other kind of techniques that can be helpful is relaxation techniques and mindfulness. I'm sure all of you have heard of it before. So we have deep breathing. So deep breathing is breathing to your tummy, and it's slow inhale, slow exhale. Progressive muscle relaxation, where you get them to tense up and then relax. An easy way is just to do stretches. That's easier. And every child might deal with their emotions differently, and different type of strategies might work differently for different kids. So it's always good to sit down with your child one day and just develop a so-called a toolkit for them to manage their emotions. So things like, some of them like to hug their soft toy. Some of them like to rock back and forth. Some of them like to draw, or they play Lego, they'll calm down, right? Some of them just like to just go to their room, then they feel a bit more calm. So all these can be done with them. You just probably want to write them down. Yeah. And finally, if you want to do something with your child, this app is called the Smiling Mind app. So you will see that the logo looks like that, brain with a smile. Okay, I use this a lot with the clients that I see, the children and adolescent, and they like it. So they have so-called mindfulness or relaxation or breathing techniques for children from 7 years old all the way to adult. Yeah, and they divide by age, so that's nice. So it can be very simple breathing exercises, like it can last from 1 minute to 10 minutes. Yeah, so if you really want, you could try this. This can be helpful for children that tend to get anxious before school. So then what I would suggest is for you to do that before bedtime for them every night before school, to get them to relax and then go to sleep. So you can just play the audio and then let them lie in bed, and then maybe just lie next to them to do it, right? Or you just sit next to them. Yeah. Another way is also in the morning before school. If they get anxious, you can also play it in the car, play on the way to to school and things like that. It helps them relax quite a bit. Okay. Then the second strategy is to create positive memories. So remember to remember, right? So when we ask our child, how was your day? Usually it's good, and that's it. I get that from my son. So how's your day at school? Good. And then that's it, right? So need a lot of probing. Yes, so remember to remember. Ask for specific details. So now what I do is ask him, what's your favorite thing that happened at school today? What was there something that you didn't like? But I will focus more on the positive. So what's your favorite thing? Do you play with your best friend? Was the food in school delicious today? So it's focusing on the positive. So here in this comic, the examples, what's your best part of your day? When I played with my friend and I painted. I know you love painting, what was your not best part, so and so. So you try to get them to talk about their memories in school. One thing is, if they talk about the positive memories more, they'll start linking positive emotions to school experience. Yeah, and that helps, right? Because if we are focusing on academics all the time, or things that don't go well in school, then a lot of times it's the negative emotions that get stuck to memories. Yeah, to school memories. So we want to kind of like try and shift that perspective a bit. Okay, so we want to talk about what went well. Yeah, so helping your child to remember, what can we do if they are stuck, or they can't really recall certain things, or they are always stuck on the negative things? What they can do, create routine or so-called traditions or rituals that are positive and helps them feel safe, that is related to school. Right, so like every time before school, maybe they get to listen to that app, or they get to have they get to have a very nice car ride, and in the car they get to listen to their music, their own songs, the songs that they like, and things like that. So something that is positive and it repeats every day, a positive routine that is connected to an experience, okay, for an event, which is like going to school per se, or after school, when you always go and pick your child, perhaps you can drop by the ice cream shop, or we always walk through the park and try and, we can stop at the playground for a while, things like that. So those are like simple routines that can actually make going to school a bit positive for your child, even though it doesn't happen in school, because then they link it with school. They look forward to school. They look forward to getting off from school, right? Things like that. Another way for younger kids is to get them to draw and write down what happened, right? And that can also help add some positivity to the situation, and they can also start verbalizing from their drawing. It's easier for them to verbalize through their drawing, especially if their language is not as strong or as fluent yet. Okay, so this is some. And then remember we talked about how our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors are connected, right? And that sometimes we have unhelpful thoughts, right? So we want to help our child think realistically. So when they think realistically, it means that to get them to develop helpful thoughts on their own. Okay, because sometimes we tend to, the thoughts come automatically, and sometimes the unhelpful thoughts just come automatically. It's so very difficult to stop. And it's okay if they come. What can we do to deal with them? So first of all, of course, identify them, right? Identify the unhelpful thoughts, and we can learn to challenge them, because a lot of times unhelpful thoughts are not true, right? They're just there to be, in case, or to be safe, kind of thing. So we want to challenge the unhelpful thoughts. How can we challenge? The first way is to have helpful thought reminder cards. So here on the right side of the slide, you see this is an example. This is a very detailed example. But helpful thought cards can be simpler. It can be just things like, it's okay, don't worry, be happy, or like, the situation will get better, I can do it, things like that, okay? But in this helpful thought card, remember we talked about the new teacher in the example before. So here is the situations that we have a different teacher today. So we have a new teacher, and the helpful thought that the child can tell herself or himself is that there's nothing I can do to change the situation, so there's no point in getting stressed or anxious about it. I will be okay. So reminding them that these are some helpful thoughts that they can use to calm themselves down. So then when their thoughts change, their emotions change as well, right? And of course, their behaviors will change. So they might be less withdrawn, they might be less tense, they might be more relaxed in that sense. So this is one example or one strategy, helpful thought reminder cards. Next strategy is to use facts or like use evidence to discover the helpful thought. Okay, so what do I mean? Okay, I like to call this the detective exercise. So I like to tell the kids, today you're going to be a detective. Okay, and when you're a detective, we're going to find out the evidence about that supports your unhelpful thought or your helpful thoughts. Okay, so the event that's happening is that there is a new teacher today. So the thoughts are the same as the example previously, but she's fierce, she looks very scary, and then the worry rating 7. So now let's look for evidence if these thoughts are true or not. So what are the facts? I have never met her before, so actually I do not know if she's fierce or not. She actually could be friendly and nice. So what else could happen? She could be friendly and nice. What is likely to happen? Well, the teachers in school are generally nice. I have not met a scary teacher before. What has happened to other people, or what has happened before? I think I will get to know her better, and then she might not be too scary after all. So these are evidence, and they're things that are facts that they will happen or have happened before. So then based on this, you want to get them to think about what is a more realistic or more helpful thought. So then you can say at the end of the day, well, the new teacher might seem scary now because I do not know her. But after getting to know her, I might not be too scared of her anymore. So then the worry might also calm down, right? So it's very different from the previous thoughts. So it's not about changing the thoughts all the way to positive or super helpful, but it's making it a bit more realistic to think about both sides. Okay. Okay, so the last strategy that we want to talk about is this: engage them, don't enrage them. So instead of the command and demand, like, when she said, I hate you, mommy, or saying something that you don't like, instead of saying, that's not okay, I don't want you to say that again, you point out their emotions. Oh, you're really mad. Is it because I didn't get you the necklace? It's like, yeah, you're so mean, right? So then, okay, then you can state the reason and then try and engage the child in problem solving. So this is about engaging the child's upstairs brain to try and get them to problem solve. And why we want to do that? Because the more we do that, the easier it is for them the next time. The more practice we have, the easier it is. Same for us, the more practice we have in engaging our upstairs brain, the easier it is for us to engage it. So now as parents, before we can even do that, we need to stay engaged ourselves, right? Not easy. Okay, I know because that happened to me before. So not easy, right? So when my downstairs brain is enraged, how do I then engage my upstairs brain? And how can I help my child engage their upstairs brain? So now I would like to do a simple exercise with you, right? So just listen to what I have to say and then think about it, okay? So every night before you go to sleep this week, when you're at your most calm and relaxed, I want you to put your hand on your chest. Spend a few seconds noticing how peaceful you feel, how free of anxiety and stress you feel in that moment, even if it's just a few seconds. Okay, do that every night. Then the next time you feel yourself becoming very upset with your kids, I want you to return to that pose. So that pose, that posture or position of you putting your hands on your chest, taking a deep breath in, taking a deep breath out, closing your eyes for a bit. You don't even have to lie down. Okay, notice how quickly it can help you calm down and control your emotions. Why you want to do this? Because the fact is that that body posture, right? Your body is associating that posture or that pose with calm and serenity. Means that whenever you want, you can return to that pose whenever you feel like you want to activate that relaxed state. Okay, so I want you guys to try it tonight. Okay, just before you go to bed, where you feel like, the day is done. Okay, just another day, and then you put your hands on your chest, get into your most relaxed position, close your eyes for a bit, take a deep breath in, out a few times, and just remember how that felt. Remember how that lack of tension and relaxed you feel. Then the next time you feel like you're being enraged, that your own downstairs brain is being enraged, bring yourself back to that posture and remind yourself about that. Okay. And then, of course, the final strategy and the last one for today is to problem solve with your child. Yeah. So first of all, of course, get a description of the problem from your child and encourage them to try and make a choice on their own first. How do they want to solve the problem, right? If cannot, then you want to engage them in brainstorming. And when you engage them in brainstorming, evaluate the pros and cons of each idea that they have, and then select the best ideas. Or you can also combine a few ideas because you are the adult there. You can facilitate them to solve the problem, right? And help them refine the ideas. Then of course, try out the solution, get them to try it out, and then come back to you and think about whether it was successful or not. At the end of the day, they can help them review and revisit if needed. Okay, this is just a very simple way of problem solving. Of course, depending on the context or the type of problems, you might use different ways to problem solve. Okay, but generally, this is one guideline that you can follow. Okay, so finally, just a reminder to all parents out there, it's okay to fall apart, right? Tacos fall apart and we still love them. Right? Or like, there's no such thing. I want to remind again at the last webinar, I think I said this also, is that there's no such thing as perfect parenting. Our kids don't come with a manual and they're all different, right? So, and they just need us to be good enough, and good enough is okay. Yeah. Okay, so these are just some suggested readings if you want to find out more about the strategies that I've talked about today. They're from these books, and these books might also explain in detail the theory and the background behind it. If you want to just visit a website, this website is really good, Raising Children Network. It has everything from mental health to developmental milestones, and suggestions for parents with videos. Okay, so you can visit these websites and look at these books. And then we'll go into our question and answer section now. And thank you everyone for listening, and feel free to really just send some questions over. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Jamie, for your sharing. Really, really appreciate it. Really a lot, very valuable to parents. Even though I'm not a parent, but I find it very, very very a lot of value, especially the upstairs, downstairs brain. Yeah, actually, I have this question. Actually, I want to ask. Like, I'm not a parent, but there was this saying that that you talk about prefrontal cortex. I'm not sure if I got the name correctly, right? It's that the something about the brain development. Like, is it like females generally develop faster than males?
I don't know about that. But in terms of developmental milestones,
Yeah.
females tend to be faster in that way. But as they grow up, they even out actually. Yeah.
So it's
they
is
even
is
out.
it like in your experience, or is it generally like girls generally will have a better way of managing it, or it's just like it doesn't really matter?
I think that because, right, generally girls develop the language faster in
Mm.
terms of developmental milestones.
Mm.
So they tend to be able to express better. And then
Mm.
when you're able to express better, the tendency of you expressing your emotions, you calm down faster also.
I see.
Yeah. So then actually that helps. Boys are a bit more active, so then the emotions might come out first
Oh.
before they start saying anything. So for boys, sometimes like my son, because I have a 5-year-old, so I do encourage him to use your words. So I sit him down and say, use your words, tell me what is going on. And then you will realize that when you get your child to start saying, they calm down faster.
So instead of like being more active, like actions, like moving around, just calm themselves down by asking them to talk to you and let them talk more first.
Yeah, because you calm them down, you change their posture already, right? You get them to sit down, then they sit down, then you change the posture already. So that also helps with the managing of the emotions a bit.
Yeah,
so
like,
you see a lot of the overlap of the strategies here and there.
So it's like even like breaking the posture itself also affects the way they behaving.
It
Wow.
will.
Okay. That's something new. So I mean, maybe Rebecca, like mother of 2 young boys, right? Maybe you have some questions for Jamie as well.
Hey Jamie, yes, you. So what happens is that my son, he is 5 years old. Yeah, so recently I think the school they implemented this new thing so they preempt the kids very well, such that they told Lucas that coming to school no need to do swab test. So it gave me, like, the school did the job so well that it gave me another insight of issue. Lucas doesn't want to go to school right now because he's afraid of being swabbed.
Oh.
Yeah, so how can I help him? Because like every morning he'll show tantrums, want to go to school. Yeah, so although I tell him that you only do swab if you're sick, but he doesn't buy in the idea.
Okay. So for that, usually what I'll ask is I'll ask more about what is his worries, the anxiety about taking the swab. So so we go back to this one.
Okay.
So I'll ask him, okay, so what happened? He say, when he takes a swab. So maybe it's when the last time he took a swab. So I'm assuming he took a swab before.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, okay. So then what happened was he took a swab. So what was he thinking when he took a swab? Or when he's going to take a swab, what is he thinking? So then you can identify those thoughts, right? And then how he feel, and then you want to rate it, right? So when you look at that, you realize that perhaps most of the time there'll be unhelpful thoughts lah.
Okay.
Right? There'll be things like, yeah, it's very so scary, it's so ticklish. What if it poked through my nose? My son told me that the other day, what if it poked through my nose? I'm like, really? So, but yeah, so they might have those unhelpful thoughts that triggered the anxiety. And we can't blame them because they might not know that it's real or not. And our survival instinct is to believe these thoughts, So then what you can do is then go to this one. This one, lor. You can ask him, okay, so these are these thoughts. Tell me, the last time you took the swab, how did it went? So you base on facts. How did it went? Then you say this is this. Was it painful? Did it go through your nose? Was it very fast? After that, do you do well? Did you feel good that you actually accomplished that? Then you go, yeah, yes. They say, okay. So then what can be a more realistic thought about, the swab test? That, okay, even though it's uncomfortable, it's actually very fast and it didn't really hurt me. And it helps other people because of COVID, right? I have to do it, things like that. So then, then you want to talk him through all this and then remind him of that. So then the next time that happens, you can remind him, remember we talked about it, and then remember the helpful thought. So then you can perhaps put it in a helpful thought card like that. The situations when we need to have a swap. The helpful thoughts is that it's okay. It's not that bad. Nothing bad will happen. And it's to be considerate to people around us is the responsible thing to do, for example. Yeah. But of course, depending on the age of your child, then the language needs to dial down. You might need to do it a bit more simply in that sense. So yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Yeah. Sounds a lot like it's a lot of affirmations required, right?
Yeah, in a way.
Correct.
Yeah, and we want to also clarify the unhelpful thoughts in that sense.
Okay, so we have a question from the audience. So she was asking, how can I check how can I encourage my child to school and follow instruction?
There's two parts, right? How to encourage my child to go to school, number one. And then when at school, how to follow instructions. Number two. Okay. The go to school part, I think mainly is really to make positive memories. So like, for example, where is it? Yeah, this one. Remember. So you want to make things positive for them. So a lot of times to encourage them to go to school, I'll ask like, oh, what's your favorite part of school? Then a lot of times they'll say recess, PE, or this and that, or I like to go to the bookshop to buy the erasers. Kids like to do that. Then, so you can use that. And then you can say that, oh, today you're going to school. What are you going to do during recess then? So get them to think about the thing that they might actually look forward to. So are you going to the bookshop and buy something again? Sometimes you want to get cheeky with your kid, then you ask this. It's like, then they will he don't want to tell you. Yeah, and stuff like that. Or like, oh, recess that day you told me the chicken rice was very good. So are you going to eat chicken rice again today? So get them to remember the positives. That might help them to be more encouraged to go to school. So you want to avoid the negative ones for the beginning. Yeah, especially if it's just started, right? And then there's some school refusal. In terms of following instruction, that one, it depends on the context. And of course, it depends on the support that the teacher can also give. You might need to actually discuss with the teacher if you feel like this is an issue, if like following instructions is really a huge problem lah. Yeah. But if it's just simple, like it's just normal, like, remember to go to school and listen to your teacher, and stuff like that, you could possibly set up a very simple reward system with the teachers if they don't mind. Yeah. Or, you can, if you feel like your child is the kind that would just tell you whatever that happens in school, then okay, you can set up a reward system with them also. Like, if you follow instructions during this period, then remember you come home, you tell me, then maybe we can put a star on the star chart or something like that. Something simple. But yeah, I might need more information to advise more on the following instruction part. Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of other questions that we have.
I got one question from the floor. So so my son is very stressed to eat in school, and as he's a very slow eater, sometimes after class break, the time is not enough for him to eat. So how do we encourage them to eat a bit faster, especially when they are eating with vegetables? Yeah, because it happens to Lucas as well. He doesn't eat, and he complains that he's very hungry when he comes back.
Okay. So first of all, when your child starts eating at home, I will start timing them first. Okay. Why? I set the baseline first. So I want to find out the baseline first. So so let's say he finished his meal in like 45 minutes, like really very slow, 45 minutes. Then you want to talk to him and say that, 45 minutes. Okay. Tell me, so you want to try and so son is very stressed in school. I'm assuming primary 1 already lah. That's why I have to eat.
Actually, my son 5 years old also very stressed. He very slow because got a lot of vegetables, so he'll end up eating all the vegetables.
Okay, that one is a different problem. That one you need to target the picky eating, not the slow eating.
Okay.
So if
So maybe the
it's
slow eating first.
so if it's slow
Mm.
eating, I'm assuming
Uh,
primary school because recess very
uh,
short. Okay,
uh,
so then the child can be a bit more verbal. So you want to ask the child, is there a reason why it's difficult for you to eat quicker? What's wrong? Tell me. Or you can observe your child when they're eating and see what could be difficult, and then you want to resolve from there. Because sometimes it could be what we call oral motor. So like the mouth, the muscles, the structure, the way they swallow or they chew. Then that one you probably need to go and speak to a speech and language therapist that they can help with the muscle building and help with their swallowing. Yeah, so then that's a different issue lah. But if it's more of like procrastinating, or things like that, I don't like the food, yeah, then you might want to use a bit more behavior management kind of thing. You want to use the reward system. So once again, positive experience to it. So I'll say, okay, now 45 minutes. The next meal, if you can finish within, let's say, 10 minutes, so 40 minutes, I give you 35 minutes. I reduce 10 minutes only. So very short. It's okay to start small. Yeah, just 35 minutes. Then you can have this, or that. Then we put a star. And then the next time you 35 minutes also, I put another star. And then you slowly move down from 35 to 25, or to 15 minutes, that kind of thing. And then you want to, of course, praise and say, well done. Now let's try it in school. So then you want to try it in a home environment first. And then in school, you first tell them, don't worry, if you can't finish, it's okay. You just eat as much as you can. Don't panic. Yeah, it's okay. We will slowly work towards that. And then maybe you can problem solve and think about what is the quickest for you to eat. Is it a bun? Or is it rice? Sometimes chicken rice, like those dry fried rice, easier, faster to eat as compared to noodles with soup. So then these kind can also be good options for the child. And then as they are able to get better at home, then you try and translate it in school. And then of course the encouragement and the thing. So yeah. So another thing is to make meal times happy and positive also lah, whether it's at home or in school. So that same thing, the memories, positive, it will help him not want to avoid meal times or don't feel stressed whenever it's meal time.
Great. Speaking about positivity, so we have this question about how do we reframe negative experience at school? So Jamie, how would you do that? What's your suggestions or your remedies on that?
Okay, reframe negative experiences. That means that, okay, it depends on what the negative experience is. Sometimes if the negative experience is an opportunity to grow or is an opportunity to learn to cope with emotions, I might not reframe. I might actually talk about it and then teach them how to cope instead. So not all negative emotions, negative experiences need to reframe. However, if the experience is something where they think is negative, so like, actually when they tell you, you're like, actually seems okay, but because they thought, because of all the unhelpful thoughts, right? So that's why they think it's negative, then that's when you need to reframe. Then that's when you need to highlight the positive part to them, and ask questions. So the easiest way to reframe is ask questions to get them to think about the positives themselves. Yeah, like, but what if you don't do this, then how? Then you will, oh yeah, if I don't do this, then it will be like that. Yeah. So perhaps when you did that, it was a good thing. And then they go, oh yeah, maybe it is something like that. Yeah. So hopefully that helps to clarify, because then you need to tell me like specifically what do you mean negative experiences. But in general, that's what I will do.
Right. Thank you, Jamie. So we are almost coming to the 1 hour mark. And just want to see if there's any other questions before we close. Because it's almost 9 p.m. I think it should be nap time for some of the kids here already. I mean, parents, kids, not the kids. I don't think kids are attending this. It'd be very weird. But yeah.
Maybe more for parents to wind down time.
Yeah, wind down time to, open a bottle of wine, relax, enjoy a good day of work.
Yes.
Definitely. So if you don't have any more questions, we're gonna close today. I think everyone here will definitely agree with me. It has been an absolute insightful evening with Jamie here, and I really appreciate Jamie for being here with us. I know sharing so much insights and answering so much questions that being a parent, it's never easy, but we're all in this together. I mean, not me, but hopefully one day I'll join the group of parents because I love kids a lot. I used to teach kids swimming when I was much younger, many years ago. So it was something that I really enjoy. So if you do have any further questions, right, you can definitely drop an email to Jamie. I think she will drop her email in the chat. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop an email to Jamie, and I believe she will do her very best to try and answer your questions. And one last thing for those before you guys leave, as an attendee, right, you're entitled to a $5 Grab food voucher that you can use on your next meal order. So all you need to do right now is to scan. You should be seeing a screen right now. You need to just do a scan on the QR code to complete a form, put it on an email address, and we'll send the voucher to you within 2 weeks. All right. We're going to leave the QR code on as we take our leave here. And once again, really thank you everyone here for taking out time in a weekday evening to spend with us and having Jamie here. So please continue to stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you, everyone, and we hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Hey, thank you. Bye.